supercharged today.
I'm always charged.
I feel your vibe today.
But Doc, Afrobeats debut. Look,
I'm
Ghanaian music. Ghanaian music.
I'm telling you, we're flying.
Charlie.
We're really flying. When we're in secondary school in the 90s, if we will listen to music, it has to be something from the States. Tupac, Biggie.
So you can rap the Tupac song. So sing to this one.
If you don't do that,
let
me take the bandana. You see, I like the.
Doc, look, you cannot disappoint the people on the mountains. Doc, this is your instrumental. This one is Tupac. You go. Meet your pa.
But after the show.
Okay. That is what Doc is saying.
But yeah, now I hardly listen to, it's just Afro beats through and through. I mean, it's local GH, Stone Boys, Midi.
Yeah, I get the drill.
So now the switch is so powerful. You go to any event and it's just that which is dropping.
Yeah.
We're really, really doing well, and they should keep it up.
Yeah, we
should keep it up.
We're happy.
Kofi, you know something?
Tell me.
If you were you are an account chief, and Kayabefro and Kobia Hene.
Hey, why?
And Kobia.
Hene.
When they go, they leave some people behind. They've gone.
It is you that have said the thing.
It
is you.
When they go, they leave some people behind. It's a proverb. At the end of the show, at the end of this week, we'll explain.
Media have understood.
Good afternoon to all our listeners. It's good to be here another Wednesday.
And those of them who have gone and
who
left
have
us.
Gone, yes, there's advanced guys. So in the Akan traditional, there's something a chief called Ankobia. So you,
I would have been Ankobia.
You are Ankobia. I'm your servant.
I know, right?
I assist you. They will come and meet us.
They will come.
Right. So Kofi, today.
I know we got a letter.
Yes, from one of our listeners.
Yeah.
Do you want to share with us?
Yeah, I want to share. I want to share. So,
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, I'm sure you're listening, so listen carefully, please. So this message says, "Hi, Kofi. I listen to the show all the way from Newcastle, UK. I never miss the Drive Doctor segment with Lexus, and now I need the Drive Doctor's help. I have a niece back in Ghana. She works as a seamstress. 2 years ago, it came to my attention she was in some financial distress. I wondered why a self-employed woman would face financial hardships. That was when I was told ill health has made it impossible for her to work. The nature of the illness was described as being possessed by witchcraft. She has been experiencing seizures, and the family has decided to seek spiritual help. No matter how much I have argued, my niece has not been presented to a doctor. I know some of the family listen to Drive Doctor on Joy FM, and I would be grateful if Dr. Yaw Osafo can shed some more light in the issue of epilepsy."
Right. Kofi.
This is the letter we received this week.
Right.
And
I think that's the reason why we're going to talk about seizures and we're going to talk about epilepsy. Kofi, it is one of the oldest known diseases to man or medical conditions. The first description of this disease is in a book called Sakiku. That book was written about 3,000 years ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. Kofi, if I ask you to show me your secondary school notebook, it doesn't exist.
Last semester they
doesn't exist. But there's a 3,000-year-old book where you have the first detailed description of what we're going to talk about today.
I see.
So Kofi, just imagine something that's been with us 3,000 years. And I read that letter from our listener friend in the UK, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Because he's representing something that we see too often in the hospitals and in the clinics, where we stigmatize people who have this medical condition and not a spiritual condition. So when we open the phone lines, one of the things I want people to do, I want people to let us know if they know someone with epilepsy or whether they suffer that medical condition. And Kofi, you'll be surprised that I think a good number of people or families know about this condition because it's been around.
I think I have actually encountered someone with a seizure.
Oh wow, you have.
It was crazy.
Yes.
Horrifying experience.
It's a very dramatic
is the word.
Sight.
Yeah.
To see someone going through that, but unfortunately, it's also a very painful thing for them to go through. So today and next week, we're going to talk about seizures.
So, Doc, we are talking about a chere in Chi, is it?
Yes, or a cha.
A cha.
Okay. Because they fall down. It's like you've been cut down. These individuals who experience something and they fall to the ground.
Okay.
So it's as if you've been cut down. One moment you're standing, and the next moment you're on the floor.
So that's in Chi.
That's in Chi or in Akan. So I'm sure the Gans, when any Gan speaking individuals who can let us know when we open the phone lines in all languages.
Right.
So, Kofi, that's the first point. Let me share, before I come to the definition, let me share some key facts about this disease as well.
Sure.
The first point is that it's an ancient medical condition, 3,000 years plus.
Right.
Number two, it is a chronic, and last week I had the opportunity to explain chronic and acute to Lexus. Long lasting, persistent, chronic. All right, that's what it means. Long lasting, persistent. So epilepsy is a chronic, non-communicable, very, very important, non-communicable, and we'll come to talk about that in a bit, disease of the brain. So COVID is not a heart condition, it's not a lung condition, it's not a kidney condition, it's a condition that affects the brain. It emanates from the brain and it affects people of all ages. Number two, around 50 million people across the globe live with this condition.
50 million.
50.
Wow.
That's a big number.
Like almost times 2 of Ghana.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, the total globe. So it's something that's more common than we care to admit, making it one of the most common neurological diseases globally. Neurological means in relation to the brain, right. Spinal cord, and nerves. Point 3, nearly 80% of all the people who live with epilepsy, this 50 million, 80% of this number live in places such as Ghana, low and middle income countries. Of course, the low and middle income countries form the bulk of the countries in the world. Right. So in our part of the world, we'd expect we have more of such individuals. It is estimated that up to 70% of people living with epilepsy could actually live free of the disease if it is properly diagnosed and treated.
I see.
Kofi, this is a point that breaks my heart. So many people are living and suffering from this condition when they could be treated.
Yeah.
They could be properly diagnosed and treated. Yet, for certain decisions that we take, the individual doesn't receive the necessary diagnosis and the necessary treatment.
Is it because people think it's a spiritual kind of
you hit the nail right on the head? So they feel the person is spirit possessed. And there are passages in the Bible that people will jump to and make references to in the New Testament, to make their point. But I mean, theologians will tell you that that is a misrepresentation, of the scripture. So we've made all sorts of attributions, and not just for the people of the Christian persuasion, but even traditionally, those who are not, they all make attributions of the person being possessed. Being possessed, and therefore you need to exorcise that spirit from that individual. The risk of premature death in people with epilepsy is up to 3 times higher than that for the general population.
Wow.
3 times higher than that of the general population. So, Kofi, these are some sobering facts about epilepsy that kickstart the conversation that we're going to have. So, Kofi, what is epilepsy, or what is a seizure disorder? Epilepsy is a condition that is characterized by recurrent seizures. So if an individual keeps having these seizures, then we'll say they have developed epilepsy, especially when we don't have an underlying cause. A seizure, Kofi, is a brief episode of involuntary movement that may involve a part of the body or the whole body, and are sometimes accompanied by loss of consciousness. All right? So when I say raise your hand, you do that.
Yeah.
I could see your head bopping when I came to the studio because you were jamming away, and very, very happy about that.
Right.
Those are all deliberate movements, or called voluntary movements. But if all of a sudden those muscles under your control, if they start moving without your say-so, then we'll call that involuntary movement.
Right.
So a seizure is a brief episode of involuntary movement that may involve a part of the body. So it could just be my hand, making these movements, or the whole body. That's the one that fills people with so much fear and dread.
Right.
And then the only thing that we can think of is that this person must be possessed. So I'm sure you see on TV sometimes when they, quote unquote, are casting out demons. Then you see the person on the floor
shaking,
jerking, twisting wildly and all of that. And we say they are casting out demons.
Right.
Why would we not associate such movements? If you see it on the street, then we would say that, this person is demon possessed.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
It does make a lot of sense.
But a seizure is an involuntary movement. So we've got two broad types of muscles. Those that work whether we want them to or not. For example, your heartbeat. Yes, Kofi, I know when you see a beautiful woman, the heart will beat faster as well. So you taste her, then your heart will go.
Me normally it's my eyes. My eyes will be
your eyes will go, like that, Yes. So you've got, periorbital muscles around your eyes, and then we've got the muscles. So your intestines, for example, we don't control how fast food moves down the intestines.
Right.
So all those muscles are involuntary. But then the muscles of your arm, your forearm, your hands, your legs, your thighs, they are all voluntary, muscles. We control them. So whenever you have brief episodes of these involuntary movements, we would say you are experiencing a seizure. It may be a part of the body, or it may involve the whole body. And it may also be associated with a loss of consciousness. And we know that one has lost consciousness when there is bowel and bladder incontinence. It means they open their bowels and therefore they will soil themselves.
Right.
They defecate, they open their bladder, and then they will pee all over the place. And this is what a seizure is. And if an individual keeps having these things, recurrent seizures, then we will say the person has developed epilepsy.
How frequent?
If everybody is entitled to one seizure in their lifetime.
Really?
Yes, that's a saying that we have.
Okay.
But everybody is entitled to one seizure. Because globally, 10% of individuals will have a seizure at some point in their lives.
Okay.
So based on that, we say, everybody's entitled to one.
To one, okay.
If you have two or more seizures, you need, there's a problem.
Okay.
That's a problem. So we will define the recurrent, as such. Again, we would label it epilepsy when there is no known underlying cause. Okay. So I'll come to that a bit when I begin to talk about some of the causes as we know. But 50% of the cases, we don't know. A seizure episode results or are the result of excessive electrical discharges. So, we all know about high voltage. Yes. ECG.
Yeah.
It's not VR, it's not gridco.
Yeah.
It's ECG.
ECG.
One of my high voltage.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a volt guard, then you see that thing is doing that kind of thing. Then sometimes you actually see sparks on the electrical wires,
Right.
outside and all of that. I want everybody to think about a seizure as exactly that. We have electrical voltages running through our brain. Our cells communicate, brain cells communicate with each other by sending electrical impulses.
Wow.
So we've got electricity in the brain. All right.
Okay.
But if the voltage is too high, then you will have a surge. All right. You'll have some firing, excessive firing in the brain, and it will lead to that. So seizures can also vary in frequency and also intensity, where the person may even just have, in a simple form, the person may just have a brief loss, or they become absent-minded. So you're talking to the person, and all of a sudden the person seems to be staring out of the window, eyes are staring into the distance, and as if they are not paying attention
to what you're saying.
I always mention this to teachers when I have the opportunity to speak about epilepsy in schools. Don't strike the children over the head. Don't punish them. Say they are looking out the window, they're not paying attention. Sometimes they've developed something we call an absence seizure. Where they become just absent-minded, they're staring into the distance, Kofi, for a brief period. That is also a type of seizure. And then they come back to themselves, as if they went somewhere and then they just come back into their bodies. Right. Then you can have jerky movements involving just the finger, the thumb, the eyelids. Then you can have the dramatic one that involves the whole body, where there are strong jerky movements involving the legs, the thighs, the forearm, the arm, all parts of the body. The trunk is arched and all of that. So you can have all of these things. So Kofi, once again, if you have two or more unprovoked, meaning there's no underlying cause of a seizure, then we would say you have epilepsy. Now let's look at some of the causes.
Okay.
Now, let me make this disclaimer out there. Epilepsy is not contagious. I need to make that point. I'm making that point the second time. Initially, I said it was a non-communicable disease.
Right.
I need to make the point again. Of all the different causes, it is not a contagious disease.
Okay.
Right. In about 50% of the cases, most of the time we will investigate somebody with a seizure disorder and we will find no known underlying cause. In the other 50, we would find a reason.
Okay.
And following examples. 1, you can have a brain damage during birth, in and around the time of birth. So that's why, Kofi, we preach that unsupervised births, delivery, we don't encourage it at all. We're not necessarily saying hospital. Remember I said unsupervised. You must have a trained person to help. But the reason why we mention the hospital or maternity homes is that simple thing like oxygen tank sitting there is all a baby may need.
Right.
4 minutes without oxygen, you may have brain injury. And that brain injury may be the reason why this child later on falls back in terms of the developmental milestones and also develop seizures.
Wow.
So we say prenatal or perinatal, in and around the time of birth, you may have that trauma, and also babies who are low birth weight. So the antenatal period is very, very important. Another cause is what we call genetic or congenital abnormalities. Because when we say congenital, we mean you are born with it. So there are some genetic problems that a baby may have because of some inherited genes that gives them a particular medical condition that has seizures as a presenting or as a presentation. I'll not go into the names of the exact genetic conditions now. Number 3, and this one I'm speaking directly to my Okada friends. I know it's going to be political potato, hot potato this season. But we should all be clear in our mind. Head injuries. Some of the worst types of injuries that you can have when you suffer a head injury. Whether from a road traffic accident, fall from a height, Kofi Hayford a fruit mango.
Yeah, then you fall.
And all of that. But a lot of the head injuries, doctors will tell you in this country, come from our Okada people. So the campaign by the MTT, is it D or U?
Yeah, D.
MTTD, for helmets, for us to ride using helmets and all. But very, very important. Very, very, very important. We need to regulate that sector. Otherwise, our healthcare bills and all of that, it just goes through the roof.
Right.
So all severe head injuries potentially can be the reason why people have seizures. We also preach that we do not strike children in particular over the head as a sort of punishment. Don't hit them over the head. You never know the type of head injury you may cause that child.
Right.
So please, as for the head, it's for thinking. Let's leave it alone. Number 4, Kofi, some individuals may suffer a stroke. And once they suffer a stroke, the stroke may restrict the amount of oxygen that goes to the brain. And it will cause a lot of people to develop seizures subsequently. So strokes are a reason why. Strokes from hypertension, strokes from diabetes, and stroke from other conditions, even such as sickle cell disease, can be the reason why a person is presenting to you now because of seizures.
Right.
Again, an infection in the brain. And in this country, we always hear about meningitis, CSM, cerebrospinal meningitis,
right.
that breaks out most of the time in the north. But that's not the only place. In the hospitals across this country, we know about meningitis. All right, there's a thin covering, envelope layer, if you like, of the brain. We call it the meninges, right? And sometimes when you get bacteria, viruses climbing all the way and getting there, then you develop some inflammation of this covering of the brain. It can be very fatal. If it is not fatal, then it can also leave you with seizures.
I see.
So that may be the reason why a person may be having seizures. And then lastly, the cause may be a brain tumor. That is why an individual keeps having recurring episodes of seizures.
Okay.
So Kofi, it's never a straightforward thing. You don't have a seizure and then we jump and we say, oh, this one is a spiritual thing and so on and so forth. It cuts across all the ages,
right.
all the age groups, and there may be underlying causes. When we do all the investigations and we are not able to put any of these causes to the seizures, most likely your doctor will apply a label called epilepsy and put you on treatment. It doesn't mean once we don't have these things, we will say it is spiritual. No, that is when we will use that terminology, epilepsy.
I see.
What is happening is a seizure, an involuntary movement. But then we will proceed to investigate this. So Kofi, we will bring it to a close here. Now we know what epilepsy is. We've delved into the causes. We know it's not contagious. Indeed, it's a non-communicable disease.
Right.
But next week, I will talk about its presentation. You're fortunate enough to have witnessed one.
Yeah.
All right. But I would be very clear to explain to individual how it presents, how it looks like, and then we will talk about what we can do to prevent epilepsy, and also the treatment options, which does not involve a stay with a spiritualist.
Okay. I like that fact because quite a number of people have been subjected to, lodging. I'll use lodge. Lodging at spiritual centers and in churches and what have you.
Yes, and Kofi, the conditions under which you find some of them. I've had the opportunity to visit some of these prayer camps or spiritual centers and all of that. It's terrible. I mean, it's a human rights issue.
Right.
If you see sometimes what goes on there, all because we don't have a good understanding of what is happening. But that's why we have the Drive Doctor show or the Drive Chat.
Okay.
Show.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Yaw Osafo. I'm sure between now and next week, maybe someone would want to reach out to you to, help them with epilepsy. So kindly put your number out.
Good.
And where they can find you. Then we can go for the news.
So the number is 0501 477 340. 0501 477 340, and a member of the team would speak with you.
Right, and that's Medicas Hospital, right?
Medicas Hospital.
Right, thank you very, very much. And that was Dr. Yaw Osafo. We talked about epilepsy. There's more next week. Keep it locked right here. We're going for the news when we're back.